Is this on? I wasn't ready for that. Okay. All right. Good morning. I have any of you guys come to the classes I've taught before? Okay. I was gonna say I don't think I've met any of you. Um, I guess just first off, we may have some stragglers. Seems like nobody's on time anymore to anything. Um, so thanks for being on time, I guess. My name's Cody Fehlberg. I've been here at Westfield for about 2 years now. I was at KW South Valley up in South Jordan for 5 years before that. I'll just give you a quick kind of like rundown of my experience and trajectory to get here. Um, I was in sales for 14 years before I moved into real estate. It's been almost 7 years since I got my real estate license. Um, the last 8 years before I moved into real estate, I was a regional sales director for Verizon Retail, um, district manager, then a regional sales director. And then I moved into real estate, got my license May of 2019. 2020 was my first full calendar year. I was the rookie of the year for KW Utah region. I sold 29 homes in 2020. 2021, 53 homes and started building out a team with a business partner. Um, and then he unfortunately passed away. And so I ran the team by myself for a few years. That wasn't super fun because I'm not a lone wolf kind of dude. It was fun with him, wasn't fun without him. So I started ejecting agents here and there over the next like 2 years after that, to where now it's just me. Um, but I typically between like 35 and 50 homes a year that I do now. Uh, my I don't have my name on anything. It's all Wow House. I don't like the ego side of real estate personally. It's like the so and so team. Um, that's just my opinion, I guess. But virtually every so I think 45. I think I did 45 homes last year, and in a market that's struggling, right? Like people are struggling. I don't know if you guys know, but we have about 70. I don't know if we have the numbers for 25 yet, but in 2024, 75% of all licensed agents in Utah sold zero homes. None. 75% sold zero. Okay, like there's a lot of people with licenses. It's too easy to get a license. Everyone thinks I like looking at homes. I should be a realtor, right? That's not what makes a realtor. That's a showing agent. Um, but I everything that I do is referral or past client. Just my sphere of influence, and I believe that the biggest reason that my business continues to thrive is because I negotiate hard. My clients' money matters to me a lot. I'm cheap. I don't like to spend my own money, so I don't like to spend their money either. People work hard. I work hard, and I don't like to waste it, and I don't want to waste my clients' money, even if they're okay wasting it. I take it more personally than they do, I think. Hi. Yeah. Yep. Like I said, I think I take more personally spending my clients' money than they do. Like I'll ask them, hey, here's, the comps on this home. What do you want to offer? And they'll come back at me like, oh, we could come close to list price. I'm like, no, they've been on the market for 97 days. They have no offers. We're not offering list price, right? So it's just kind of funny. I think I care more about their money than they do. But we'll go through part of why that is. So we actually aren't going to start on this. We're going to start on this. Okay. So again, this is negotiation. I can tell you right now that if you do this, you will put yourself in a small minority of agents. Most agents just don't negotiate. They make no effort to, right? And I think that's the reason that people get across the finish line, they close on a home, and then 6 months later, if they need to do something, don't even go back to that same agent again. Most agents or most buyers, sellers, whatever, don't even use the same agent every time. They don't even use that same agent the next time, right? And I think there's a big reason for that. Okay, so let's go through. Is this on? Or does it not even turn off? It's on. Cool. So it does nothing. Awesome. Let's go like this then. Okay. So this is what KW, I guess I should say used to. KW used to teach their negotiation class. The way that they used to do this is they would throw out a whole PowerPoint deck, right? That they would have, hey, we want you to teach negotiation, and here's what you're going to present. Doesn't leave a lot of room for, sharing how things have worked for you. But this was the way that they used to teach the two paths of negotiation, right? One is this: you offer it, it's accepted, and then you get through to close. The second is you make an offer, it's either countered or rejected. You adjust and negotiate and figure out terms, then it's accepted or rejected, then you get through to close. Okay. This is not how it goes, by the way. Well, I should correct myself. This is usually how it goes. If you're negotiating at all, neither of these is how it goes. So what I would ask you is, how many of you have closed transactions before? Okay, so we got 2 of you. Okay, awesome. How many of you have like an active buyer right now? Okay, so 1 of you. So when you have a buyer, let's go through the process of, let's say they're going to buy this home, right? You send them listings, or hopefully you're sending them listings and they're not sending you every home that you're taking them to go see. But so they send you listings, you send them listings, you identify homes you want to see, you schedule them, you go and see them, they tell you they like it, you run comps, you put together an offer, you send the offer, get under contract, and get through to close. At what point in there do you think negotiation begins? Okay, I guess I'm talking about, like, let's say this specific home, right? Let's say the home that they end up buying. Where did you begin negotiating on that home? Don't be scared. You can say it's okay to be wrong too.
Negotiation goes on with the client.
So not with your client, negotiating with the other side. Where does that begin? What did you say? Phone call the other realtor, and when does that happen? What's that? Okay, and you said before you make an offer. Okay, so both of those are right? In my opinion, and again, this is gospel of Cody, I guess. In my opinion, it begins before that. Where's the freaking, how do I get out of present mode? It's letting me do that. It's not letting me get out of here. That's cool. There we go. I was hitting escape like 7 times. Okay. I'm going to show you guys something that, and when you're new, not doing much, you hope people don't do this. You hope the agents on your listings or whatever don't do this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go right here. Before you even make that phone call, you should know who you're up against. So you can go into agent search and you can see their production over the last 12 months. Last 12 months isn't all that matters. The last 3 months matters a lot. Okay? This is where your negotiation begins. Okay? So if someone look, right, you can see right here how many recent transactions, and these are the ones that are on the MLS. This won't include any off market, which they may have some of those too. But if they've got 4 transactions in the last 12 months, they probably don't have off market that you're missing there. This is going to tell you who you're dealing with. Why does this matter? To you, to your buyer, why does this matter? What's that? Okay. Okay, what's that? Okay, desperation, that's a big part of this. You guys, I really don't think that people understand the amount of influence realtors have over what their clients will accept and what they'll offer. I really don't think I don't think realtors understand that. Okay, this should be the very first thing you're doing before you call any agent. Do you know why? I called a listing agent yesterday, made an offer on a property, and they're overpriced by I mean, not like crazy. It's listed under 500, but they're overpriced by probably 20 grand. And so I look him up. I know that he's done 2 transactions total ever, and they were both in the last 6 months, so he's new, right? That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But then when on the phone, I challenge your price and you say to me, well, you know, in all my experience, I'm like, nope, not going to fly. So then what do I say? Without like, I'm not going to be a jerk, right? I'm not going to like call him out on it. I'm going to let him think that I don't know. I'm going to say, okay, great. Well, can you send me the comps you used? I'm really struggling to get to your list price. Oh yeah, sure. All 4 comps are from a year ago. None are within 6 months. They're all a year old. Okay, then can't be used. No appraiser is going to use those when they've skipped over 3 they're within the last 90 days. Right? So he's really reaching. And again, that's okay. But I need to know that, right? I know who I'm dealing with. So this should be the first thing that you do before you pick up the phone and call any agent, okay? Or if it's your listing, agent calls you, they're wanting to make an offer, they're discussing with you, get off the phone. Find some excuse to get off the phone so you can call them back and look this up and figure out who you're dealing with first. Okay, so a big part of the negotiation that we're going to go through, a big part is figuring out what pieces of information to share, when to share it, and how you share it. Hi. Okay, you don't just like open the kimono and show everything. That's a Todd Packer line from The Office. I don't know if you're a fan of The Office. He says, may I open the kimono with you? Anyway, okay, so this is, where did it go?
There's a third one.
How to share it. Yeah, so again, like that the other problem is, well, not the other problem. What a lot of listing agents, buyers agents, what they'll do is I'll ask them, they'll say, oh, we've got another offer. Okay, great. Can you tell me what's in it? Oh, you know I can't do that. Well, that's actually not true. You can. Has your client said that you can? That's all that matters, right? If your seller, your buyer, whatever, says you can share that info, then you can share that info. Why do they say, oh, well, you know I can't share that? Because they don't bother to have that conversation and ask their client. So what I do before I begin with a listing or a buyer is I tell my clients, and I get it in writing from them, I tell my clients, hey, there are going to come points where it will be in our best interest, negotiation-wise, for me to share pieces of info about you and about your situation. I want you to give me carte blanche to decide to share whatever I need and whenever I need. Can I have that? My clients do, right? Because if you've got another offer, does it help to say, oh, we have another offer, but I can't tell you what it is? If it's a good offer, you want to share that it's a good offer so that person will maybe go even higher to beat it, right? If it's a crappy offer, I'm not going to tell you. It's like, oh, we have another offer. You know, my clients won't allow me to share it. So anyway, but you want to, like I said, you want to start by looking up who you're dealing with, okay? Okay, so these are the 2 paths of quote unquote negotiation. But like I said, to me, the first step in our negotiation is knowing who you're up against. That is super important because again, we're gonna talk through some ways that you can use that info against an agent on the other side from you, whether it's a buyer or a seller, buyer agent or listing agent, doesn't matter. But again, this should not be how you do this, okay? Generally, I'm making a call to listing agent, finding out what's important to your client. And I'm in that phone call, I'm trying to make that agent feel like I'm their buddy. I'm on your side. I'm going to help you take this off your hands. I'm going to help make your life easy. And that's a phrase I use a lot. Like, hey, help me make your life easy. What are the things your client needs? What timeline do they need? Because I'm trying to find something that they can tell me that my clients can give that maybe we don't care about. I'm not going to tell the listing agent we don't care about it. I'm going to make it seem like it's a big deal, and I've gotten my clients to bend. And I'm getting them to bend, so you'll bend on this thing we want, right? Give them something that we already are willing to give to get something that they weren't willing to give. Okay, but I'm having that conversation before I ever even put together an offer so I can know I don't want my offer to be off on everything that they want. It's going to be off on price. I know it's going to. It's going to be off on concessions. I know it's going to, because that's just the way I work, is we're aggressive up front, right? Now this is different than like 2021 was different. Do you know that in 2021, so I was up at KW South Valley back then, and I was on the ALC, and I sent out a survey to like every agent in our brokerage to ask what was the average number of offers they were making for their buyers before finally getting under contract. And with like, I think I got like 140 responses. We had like 350 agents. I got like 140 responses. And the average was 8 offers before getting under contract. My team, our whole team of 9 of us, were averaging 1.6. Okay, again, it's because the phone call, tell me what we can do. Tell me what is important to you, because it's not always price. Price can only go so far, right? And in this market, yes, everybody wants more money, but they may be like super urgent. They may be in dire straits and they need to close by this point or else they're screwed, right? Maybe they've got a notice of default or something like that. Okay, but there are things that you can do that take pressure off them, so now they're willing to come down on price or concessions or whatever it may be. Okay, so I'm making that phone call. I'm negotiating a ton of this stuff up front. Then we put together the offer. It's going to be much closer to what they want because I found out what they want. Okay, and the way that I have that conversation, again, it's all negotiation. I'm trying to, like, I've got a little ball of Play-Doh, and that's the agent on the other side, right? I'm trying to like mold them into what I want, making them do what I want. And that's the purpose. Is the cool thing about how many of you guys have done sales before? Okay, so most of you. The cool thing about real estate is it's a sales job, but the only person I don't have to sell is my own client. I use my sales skills on behalf of my client, right? I get to legally manipulate people to do what is best for my client. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to like be unethical about it, but I'm going to get that listing agent, that buyer's agent to do what we want. Okay, so let's talk about some common points of negotiation. And we're going to go through a little bit of this. So first is like price. And this says net cost of the property, right? We're talking purchase price, concessions, whatever it may be. How's it going? This is typically what people go to, right? So I've got some clients that, yes, the money matters, but they're like, the timeline matters too. Some of the inclusions matter too. Everyone defaults to price, but if you've got 3 different people offering the same price, who gets the property? There's a lot of other stuff. Okay. Oops. Okay. We're going to go through the Rep C in just a minute, but there are so many terms that you can negotiate. And if a seller is getting everything else that they want that makes their life easy, you're much more likely to get them to give what you want, which is price, concessions, inclusions, whatever it might be. Okay. So how many of you feel like you know the Rep C pretty well? Anybody feel like they know the Rep C pretty well? Okay. Let me put you on the spot a little bit. I want you to tell me some things that are in the Rep C that you think would be points of negotiation. Due diligence, the timeline. Okay, so I'm going to do due diligence deadline. Okay. Oops, that's not supposed to be that. Okay, due diligence deadline. Price, yep. What's that? What's that? The buyers always have to pay for their own appraisal. Home warranty, okay. By the way, I had a transaction that I was the buyer on the buyer side a little bit ago. The listing agent, again, he kept using phrases like, in my experience. It was his first transaction. And again, like, that's okay. But I know he doesn't know what he's doing. We negotiated a $2,000 home warranty. Those don't even exist, right? But he didn't know. He'd, he'd, he'd never had anyone get a home warranty, so he didn't know what the cost was. So they agreed to a $2,000 home warranty. Anyway, okay, home warranty, and you can negotiate the dollar amount for it, right? They're not all the same cost, but okay, so home warranty, price, due diligence deadline, what else? What are some things that are some points in negotiation? Commission, okay. Okay, so settlement, yeah. Yep, HOA transfer fee. By the way, it's a few years ago they decided that charging a transfer fee was like straight up illegal. So everyone just changed it and called it a reinvestment fee instead, but kept charging it. So stupid. Okay, so HOA transfer fees. Okay, what else? Okay. You know what's funny is in the Rep C, I'm going to pull this up. In the Rep C, where is it here? Okay, the Rep C. Remind me, what was your name? Shaylee. Okay, Shaylee, I want you to read from that to there. You're quiet. Can you go loud? Okay. 2.1C, the loan amount. 2.1E, the balance of purchase price, meaning the down payment, can be adjusted between the buyer and their lender at their discretion. Then why do we even have this? What's the point? Okay, so if your client is planning on putting 3% down, but they've got like 30% down, what do you write right here? Depends on what you're trying to portray to the seller, right? If my client is capable of putting 30% down, and what I'm trying to show the seller is that we're strong, whatever we plan to do loan-wise, we're strong. We're not going to run away with little minor nickel and dime type situations from an inspection. Then I'm going to put 30%. I'm going to put the full dollar amount they could put down. But if I'm trying to paint us as we need lots of concessions and closing cost help because ... then I'm going to put a lower amount here, right? There's down payment grants that your client's literally putting 0 down. I might put that. But again, it totally depends on the scenario that the seller is in, right? How long have they been on the market? Do they have other interests right now? Are you their only interest? Right? I had a home that we bought a little bit ago. They'd been on the market for like 47 days, not like crazy long, but we were the first showing they had had. Not just the first offer, the first showing they'd had. So we could like go bare bones on everything, right? And they kind of had to engage with us. Okay, so yes, you're kind of like negotiating, I guess, on you're kind of negotiating on like down payment, that kind of stuff, but it's not a point of negotiation because the seller can't push back on how much you're putting down. They can't say, no, you have to be putting this much down, right? They cannot like what you've put there, but that's not a point that they can push back on. They can't counter you on your down payment amount. Okay, does this make sense? So you're using that to like paint the picture that you're trying to paint with your offer. Okay, so just be smart about how you're doing that. Okay, what else? What else can you negotiate in the Rep C? What are some terms? What's that? Earnest money? Yep. Okay, question for you. How important is the earnest money amount?
Really
Why?
bigger. Property.
Okay. And the earnest money puts who at risk? The buyer. Okay. So my home that I am in now, this is back in 21, right? The market was nuts. I was showing a home on the south side of Vineyard over by Sleepy Ridge. And my wife and I had been looking for like a year-ish, very casually, for a new house. We wanted to move. We were in South Jordan. And this house got listed that was close to where I was already showing homes. It said on it, no showings until the open house Saturday. This was a Thursday. I looked it up. The listing agent was a St. George agent. That's not very common. And then for showing instructions, it said contact the seller with his cell phone number. That's not common either. So I called a listing agent and he says, oh, I'm not really his listing agent. He made an offer on this home I've got down here in St. George. And, you know, the contingency part of making an offer means that you will have your home on the MLS within 7 days. So I am putting it on the MLS for him to fulfill that requirement, but he's representing himself. So I already know I'm playing basketball with a kid with one hand tied behind his back. All right, that's what I'm doing. So I just go over and I knock on the door. He answers. I'm like, hey, can I see your house? It's for me and my wife. I'm a realtor, blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, we're not doing the showings to the open house. I'm like, yeah, but I'm right here. So he says, okay. He walks me through it. I know that he'll get offers above what his list price is. And so I say, okay, I'll tell you what. I know you're under contract on a home in St. George. I'll give you 60 days after closing to move out, no cost. I'll pay you your list price, no cost, or no appraisal. We'll waive the appraisal, blah, blah, blah. And I'll throw in like $35,000 of earnest money. Okay, that sounds great to a seller, right? So I want you guys to read, and if you don't know this, that's okay. They're experienced agents that I've caught with their pants down on this as well. Let's see, where is it? 16, I think. Anybody see that? There we go. Can anybody read this?
The seller default one.
Yep.
If seller defaults, buyer may elect one of the following: cancel the Pepsi, additional return earnest money or deposits. Buyer may elect to accept the seller. Data damage. Sum equal to the earnest money deposit or deposits.
Okay, you can pause there. So what is that saying? If the seller cancels, well, by the way, sellers can't cancel. They can only default. If the seller defaults, what happens? They pay me 35 grand. I knew he'd get higher offers. I know I'm going to push him on some stuff in the due diligence. He didn't like it. Said, okay, well, you know, I've got other offers. I think I'm going to go to accept one of those. And I'll just cancel. I'm like, whoa, JD, you can't cancel. You can default, and then you owe me 35,000 bucks. Okay, so does earnest money put the buyer at risk only? Absolutely not. If you lose your job now, you are the seller, you lose your job and you can't buy your next house because now you can't afford it, and now you have to cancel. This applies. Doesn't matter why you have to cancel the sale. This applies. And you need to know that. You can't find out that your seller is screwed at the same time they find out they're screwed. Right? Do you know how many freaking realtors are out there that don't understand this portion of this contract? And this isn't the only portion of the contract they don't understand. Okay, I had a client, we were under contract on a home here in Orem. We were selling their home under contract. We were buying a home. We were under contract. Husband and wife and their 4 little kids. And the husband committed suicide in the middle of this transaction. So now, wife, of course, cannot afford the purchase on her own. Luckily, the sellers of the home we were buying had a heart and didn't ask to keep any of the earnest money. They refunded it all, even though they didn't have to. They could have kept it all. The buyers on the house that we were trying to sell, now we had to cancel that. They wouldn't. We had to pay them. Okay. They were perfectly within their right to accept that or to ask for that. They had already canceled their lease. They were having to move out. It was like 4 days before closing. They're screwed too, right? They're in a bad spot too. They've got to go now find a new place to live when 4 days or 1 day ago, they thought they'd be moving in 4 days into this house. So again, this isn't like pro one person, pro another person. This kind of puts everybody on the line. The buyer is way more free here than the seller. Earnest money means nothing. They've got whatever you negotiate in terms of finance and appraisal deadline till any money, that money's non-refundable, right? It's refundable all the way up until 5 p.m. on the finance and appraisal deadline. They get that back. Okay, so the buyer is free as a bird. They can get out of jail because most realtors are smart enough that we're not going to go past the F&A deadline unless my client is sure that we're buying the house. I'm not going to let them risk their earnest money. So earnest money kind of means nothing on the buyer side. So offering more, if they have it in their account that can come out, offering more doesn't necessarily hurt them at all. As long as you and the lender are really on top of your game and don't let them pass the finance and appraisal deadline unless we're sure. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? And by the way, there's 6 pages in this purchase contract. You think there's really only like 5 terms that you can negotiate? And by the way, the reason my clients got the homes they wanted so easily in 2021 when everyone else was struggling is because the blank addendum to the Rep C is my freaking playground. I love that thing. I make up whatever the hell I want in there. We've written some crazy stuff like on the 28th of February, buyer will release to seller an amount from their earnest money that satisfies the seller's mortgage payment on March 1st. Okay, so out of our earnest money, we'll give you some of that early on February 28th so you can use it to pay your mortgage payment on March 1st because we won't be closed yet. That's still earnest money and we still get it back if we cancel. The seller doesn't read it that way. They think they're getting extra money. They're not getting extra money. It goes towards my purchase. You just got it a little early. And if I cancel, you still have to pay me back. Right? So again, it's really important that you know the ins and outs of what you're putting your clients at risk for, how you can use it. I've negotiated for a Harley that was in the garage as part of the sale. You can do lots of crazy stuff. Okay, so what are some other things that you can be points of negotiation for you? So I would say one of the biggest will be the F&A deadline, right? The financing and appraisal deadline. Because that's where earnest money goes non-refundable. Okay, so before you ever throw a finance and appraisal deadline in there, you need to be really on top of how the process is going with the lender. And hopefully it's your lender, and hopefully you've vetted lenders to where you're not referring someone to a lender that you don't know is good at what they do. The hard part is where most of you are new and you're looking for ways to grow your business. The people who want to partner with you, for the most part, are really hungry, new loan officers. They don't even know if they're good yet. How do you know if they're good yet? It's tricky. Most realtors that have like a go-to lender get something from that lender, right? Like they'll contribute to their marketing costs, leads, whatever it may be. My lender gives me 0. I don't ask for anything because the most important thing to me is that he's good at what he does. Take care of my freaking clients. Don't do anything for me. Take care of my clients. Right? Because that creates solid transactions. They get across the finish line. My clients are happy. And guess what? I can get more business from my clients easier than I can get it from my lender. Because my lender is working with how many freaking realtors that now are all expecting something from him. Whereas my client, I'm the one. I'm their realtor, right? So when someone mentions to them they're looking for a home, I'm the one that's going to get that if all of this goes well, okay? So finance and appraisal, make sure you know what needs to happen, what kind of timeline they need, protect them. That should be in the range of about 3 weeks usually. Push it out farther if you can when you're on the buyer side. If you're on the selling side, don't allow a 29-day finance and appraisal. They don't need 29 days. What do they need 29 days for? You should be much closer to like 18 to 21 days. Now, again, if you have no leverage, then you have no leverage. It happens. Okay, so F&A, what are some other terms that you think you can negotiate? What's that? Okay, inclusions, yep, exclusions, inclusions, okay. And again, you can include some crazy stuff. Had some clients that we bought a home in American Fork, and we, in the purchase contract, we put that we wanted every single item of furniture and decor in the whole house to be included. Because my client was like, they had basically nothing. The seller didn't have any, like, no interest. It was just us. And so we went through and we made an itemized list of every single thing in the house, and they were leaving it.
How does that affect your?
It doesn't, because we just write a bill of sale that says that this is all being sold at $0. Yeah. You just have to make a statement to the lender that it's at no monetary value. You didn't increase the price of the home to compensate for it. Mhm. Yep. And again, it's every scenario is different, right? But this is where it's important for you to be doing the digging and finding out what's going on.
Appraisal still has.
Yeah, yeah. But the appraisal had nothing to do with the items that were in the house, right? Because they were trying to sell it at this, we negotiate on price, and then we add this in like as a totally separate issue. Yeah. Okay. Some other things, possession, right? Possession timeline. Okay. How long can you look with, if there is a lender involved, what is the longest you can give for possession? Do you know? If it's a primary residence purchase, lenders will not and cannot allow you to have not taken possession within 60 days. Because at that point now it's an investment property. Okay, so if you are going to give them delayed possession, which that's fine, you can either do delayed possession or you can negotiate a lease back. That's very common too. But again, that lease back can't be more than 60 days if it's a primary residence, or the lender says you've got an investment property, not a primary residence, which means you get like a percent higher interest rate, right? Okay, so that all needs to be within 60 days. Again, these are things that you need to know. Okay, find this stuff out so you can use it. Okay, so possession, inclusions, okay, settlement deadline, we've got that. We've got finance and appraisal deadline, due diligence deadline. What else? How many of you guys have done or are pretty familiar with like FHA, VA loans? Do you guys know how like the difference is? So the cool thing is, so there's an FHA VA loan addendum. If you are representing somebody that's buying a home with an FHA loan, you have to use the FHA loan addendum. Okay, you have to disclose to the seller, and there's some items in there that you write in. One of them is you can ask for concessions. Oh, I didn't put that, concessions. Yep. You can ask for concessions, all that kind of stuff. But one of the coolest parts about the FHA loan addendum is that it says if the appraisal is less than the purchase price by even like a penny, none of the buyer's earnest money is non-refundable. It's fully refundable as if the appraisal doesn't come in at value. During 2020, we used that all the time. We would say, oh, our earnest money is non-refundable immediately to get the home under contract. Then comes the addendum that says if the appraisal is below value, which they all were in 2021, the appraisal is below value, none of the earnest monies were non-refundable. So it supersedes what we already wrote because we put it after, right? But sellers, again, listing agent sellers, they don't read, they don't know. So we would have the appraisal come in low and we're dragging them out, be like, hey, we get that we waived the appraisal and earnest money is non-refundable, but it's actually not. We want you to come down by this much. Okay, so there's a lot of things you can do to negotiate really hard if you know the documents, okay? So FHA terms, all that kind of stuff, you can negotiate. Like if it's a VA loan, they have to get a termite inspection, right? You can negotiate the seller's paying for that. Man, what else? There's so much stuff. By the way, this right here, this section right here, I don't ever do that they are forced to mediate if they disagree. Because if people can have a conversation and like come away with an understanding what they're going to do without paying somebody to do it, then I don't want to pay somebody for it. Let's see. Home warranty, addenda, yep. Extra earnest money. Okay, so this is where not a lot of people use this, but you can use this, especially if you're asking for like a longer closing timeline, right? If your buyer wants to push it out a little bit, the seller doesn't like that. You can say, hey, I'll tell you what, at 3 weeks at our finance and appraisal deadline, we'll put in some extra earnest money, right? So we've got more skin in the game. We appreciate you delaying for us. This will help you feel more confident that we are going to close. Yes, we're pushing you out a bit, but we are going to close. Okay, so that's something if the buyer can put it in there, the seller can counter it, right? If they've got zero, the seller can say, hey, no, I want you to put extra earnest money in. Okay, right here, okay, says that if the buyer is not satisfied with the terms and conditions of the loan, the buyer may, after the due diligence deadline, cancel the REPC by providing written notice to the seller, no later than finance and appraisal deadline, whereupon blank of the buyer's earnest money shall be released to the seller. Okay, this is basically saying, hey, if I pass my due diligence deadline and cancel, even though I might be before my finance and appraisal deadline, this much of my earnest money will be non-refundable to the seller. And again, these are like, there's scenarios where this will help you. Sometimes it doesn't. And a lot of these just get overlooked and skipped over by every agent. Just move right on. I'm not doing that. Well, why? This scenario might be in your best interest to do that, especially if it gets a seller to negotiate with you on what matters more, which is price, concessions, timeline, that kind of stuff. Okay? This all really is about giving something to get something. Appraisal condition. Oh, here's a big one. Okay, so if they have a home to sell, if they have a contingent purchase, so let's say I've got a home that last time I sold my house. Okay, so we were under contract to buy a house before I listed my house for sale. I had a home to sell. Do I have to check this box that says my purchase is conditioned upon my sale? I don't have to. When do I have to? Okay, like financing wise, right? If I cannot qualify to make this next purchase without selling my home, then I have to check this box, right? Even if I do qualify for the next purchase without selling this, in this current market, I would still say, yes, it's conditioned upon selling this house. And again, that's why I say every scenario is different. There's a neighborhood that I've had 2 clients buy in that those homes never get listed. They're all off-market transactions because everyone wants to live there. So when we find out about one, I go to my peeps that want to live there and we find somebody and we make an offer before it ever even hits the market, right? So in some of these scenarios, I'm trying to get them to accept my offer without going to market because I know someone else wants to buy this house. So I might not make it conditioned upon the sale of my home because I'm trying to win, right? And then obviously we're going to be aggressive about getting it sold or something like that. But it's important that you know when do you have to and not have to put this. If your buyer won't buy the new house without selling their house, but financially they can buy the new house without selling their house, I wouldn't check this box. I would say, no, I don't have to sell my house because I can still cancel before the finance and appraisal deadline if things aren't going well in the sale of my house. Okay, and again, this is about like truth and equity, right? Or not equity, truth and ethical, right? Tell the truth, be ethical. There's nothing wrong with me saying my ability to purchase the property is not conditioned upon selling another home. Okay? It's ability, right? Like I said, kind of along with this, just because I could put down this much doesn't mean I have to. This says I don't have to. This says I can figure that out with my lender. I don't even have to let the seller know. Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of this stuff so far? Okay, and then as a seller, it's really important, please read through all of this and know what your seller has to include unless you write that it's excluded. Okay, if I've got a TV mounted on the wall, do I have to leave the TV as a seller? Does this say I have to leave the TV? Okay, the TV, no. The TV mount, yes. I don't want, if I'm buying a house, I don't want them to leave these big friggin' holes in the wall. I'm going to put a TV there anyway. Just leave the mount. Right? Like that, and that's why this is what it is, okay? Also, I had a client we went through for a final walkthrough 4 days before closing. The water softener was removed. Where does it say water softener? Water softener. Water softener was removed. This, because we didn't have it listed as included, the seller thought they could take it. It was gone. It was installed in their new house. So guess what? We found and made them buy us a brand new water softener. Okay? Ceiling fans, light fixtures. The house that I live in now, the seller tried to take this cool, fancy light fixture that was over the dining space. It's awesome. It's really unique. I liked it. I went for an inspection walk and I saw them starting to disassemble it. And I was like, whoa, 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 you don't get to take that. That has to stay. Yeah, bulbs, yeah. I've had people take bulbs out of rooms too. Okay, mirrors. Okay, all window coverings, including curtains, draperies, rods, window blinds, and shutters. People think all the time, well, but they're my curtains. They're staying. And again, all of these can be listed right here in excluded, any of them. You can exclude anything. You can exclude the range and take the range with you and make the buyer provide a new range, right? It just depends. So again, it's important that you understand what is supposed to stay. Let's see, I thought I just saw solar.
I have some friends that.
Here we go, solar panels. Now there is a separate addendum for solar panels. It says what's happening with them. Is the buyer taking over a loan or is it going to be paid off in full? All that stuff, right? But right here, it says solar panels. So if the house has solar, you go under contract here and don't outline what's happening with them, that means the seller has to leave them. And well, what's happening with them? I don't know. Are they being paid off? Whatever. Okay. Ovens, ranges, hoods. And again, this needs to be the stuff that's there in the house at the time. Right? So you guys, it's really important that you understand just all of this. It's important for you to know what is here so that you can use it to your client's advantage. Right? I will give on things that don't matter to get things that do matter. How does the seller know that they don't matter? I'm going to paint a picture that this matters to us, but maybe it doesn't matter. I'm not going to say like, oh, they can't close in that timeline. We want to push it back. Because they probably can be like, oh, okay, I don't know if that's going to work. Let me see what I can do. I'm going to make it seem like I'm just like going above and beyond to make this thing happen. And again, if you guys are just familiar with the Rep C, like in and out, you're already going to be, and not just the Rep C, get to know there's lots of different documents, okay, that people just have never looked through. They don't know what they're for. They've never used them. They stick to the Rep C and the blank addendum and the FHA addendum, and that's like it, right? There's a leaseback addendum. You don't have to write out all your own terms for the leaseback. Because the leaseback addendum takes into account everything. Like, is there a security deposit? Who's paying the utilities? All this kind of stuff, right? And that should be, you shouldn't have to outline all that. There's a seller financing addendum. It sucks, but there is one. Okay, there's one that we did a little bit ago that there was a home that was being bought. It was in crappy condition. It was likely going to go to a flipper. My clients, we made an offer. The listing agent was not communicative. I tried to get a hold of them to see how things were going, what we needed to adjust, and they went under contract with a flipper. He didn't communicate with me almost at all. But I got a hold of him. It's like, hey, I get it. You accepted an offer. You're under contract, whatever. Can I have the contact info for the flipper you're under contract with? He gave me the contact info. I called the flipper. I'm like, hey, you want to make some money without putting in any work? What do you need to make for this to be worth it for you? We'll buy it the day that you close. So we signed, it's called what's it called? Simultaneous close addendum or whatever. where basically we're under contract with the buyer who's under contract to buy it. And everything happened the same day. They close, we close. That buyer never even takes ownership. It immediately goes to us. They made like $13,000 in a matter of minutes, right? So there just are so many documents that you can use to your advantage. Look through them. Just get familiar with what's there. Okay. This is the typical information and communication flow in a transaction, right? Okay. Buyer and seller agent communicate like this. Buyer agent goes back to his buyer and talks. Seller agent goes back to their seller and talk, right? This is not how it really is going. Okay, what is actually happening here? These two are clearly not communicating, right? But really what I'm doing is I'm trying, if I'm here as a seller's agent, I am trying to communicate with the buyer. I'm communicating with the buyer through the buyer agent. You guys played telephone? Do you remember that game you used to play when you were a kid? And it never freaking works. Every time what they hear at the end is just not right. You know that's what's happening here, right? Whatever you say to that other agent, that's not what their client is hearing. So what's the point of this? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? When you interact with and communicate with an agent on the other side, what are you trying to make happen? What's that? Okay. Yep. Or just I'm trying to get this person to do what I want by getting this person. I've got to have them on my side. They've got to be in the same frame of mind about this specific thing that I am. Right? They've got to want to make this thing happen. So then I would say probably half the time I'm practically coaching the agent on the other side on how to go sell this thing that we're asking for to their client. That's what I want. So first, I've got to get them caring about making it happen, right? There's got to be some investment from them. There's got to be some payoff for that other agent to then go and convince their client to do this. I don't care how much they break their fiduciary duty. That's not on me. I'm going to be loyal to my client and honest and stuff. I'm not going to try to convince my client of anything. If he goes and tries to convince his client to do something that's not in their best interest, great, that's his fault, not mine. But I'm going to get him to decide that it's in his best interest to go convince his client of something. Or I'm going to convince him that it's a client's best interest to do something. So that then he actually goes and makes effort to make this thing happen, right? And that's tricky. It's hard. They have to think you're best buddies. There are agents I've closed transactions with. They probably have no idea. I can't freaking stand them. They have no idea. Almost always, they're the ones that within the first 30 seconds of talking will tell you how long they've been in the industry. Like, well, Cody, I've done this for 27 years. Great. That means you haven't done jack in the last year. You're trying to hang your hat on length of service because you don't have any production. That's fine. But don't beat me over the head with your years of experience because you're not experienced in the current market, right? But I'll let them think that they're in charge. I don't care. I'll let them think that they're controlling everything. I don't care, because I'm going to make you feel like we're best buddies and this is awesome and I'm here to help you, because when the time comes, I need you to go and sell your client on what I want. Okay, it's all with a purpose. I had an agent in a class. I was teaching negotiation once. We had 45 agents in the room. And there were a bunch of, I say this lovingly, it's typically women that don't like what I'm saying and the approach. They're like, well, isn't that just kind of like you're being fake? Like, absolutely. Well, I don't think I want to, be that way. Great. You be authentic and I'll close the deals. You be authentic and get your 3 transactions a year and I'll do my 45 doing it this way. Because guess who gets taken care of regardless? My client gets taken care of. I don't care what happens with, the agent on the other side. I'm not going to be a jerk. They're going to think we're best friends. And at the end, they're always like, oh, Cody, that was so wonderful. You're so great. And they think that they got to win when really we got everything we wanted. Right. And that's what you want. It's okay. I'm okay with them thinking they won. I don't care. I don't need them to think that I beat them. It doesn't matter to me. All that matters is my client is happy with the outcome. Right. That's all that this is for. You work for one party. You don't work for the other party. Okay. You like this picture? Nice, huh? Big butts. What you're looking for through all of this is leverage. All of these things you can negotiate, but whether you can actually make it happen is all predicated on what kind of leverage you have in the transaction, right? So there's only two ways to have there be some leverage. You've either got to find something that gives you leverage, right? Information. So there was a transaction I was doing a little bit ago. Before we even made an offer, I went down the rabbit hole and found out they had a notice of default already. They were being, the husband and wife, they owned a company. They were being sued. Like there's just a bunch of crap. They have to sell this house. The listing agent can say all that he wants that like, oh, well, they're not urgent. They are. I know they are. Right? So we ended up, the seller ended up taking a loss on the house. They owned it like 3 years. They ended up taking a loss on the house. We bought it for way below what they paid for it because they had to go, right? So you've got to either find leverage or create leverage. So let's talk about where you can find the leverage. This, like I said, this is the single best resource for you is the agent. And this is where, remember we talked about look up who you're dealing with, right? Look them up, look at their production. If they've closed 0 homes in the last 3 months, what does that tell you? It can tell you 2 things. What are those 2 things? What's that? Okay. Maybe they're inexperienced, right? Or what's that? I mean, no, generally they're not. Yeah. The biggest one that comes across to me is, all right, they're desperate. They need a paycheck, right? They haven't gotten a paycheck for 3 months. If they haven't gotten a paycheck well, it tells me 2 things. Either they haven't gotten a paycheck for 3 months or this isn't their job. They have another job and they moonlight as a realtor, right? I think as part of like the fiduciary duty, but this is an aside. I think as part of the fiduciary duty and honesty, when someone interviews you to be their realtor, you should have to tell them how much production you're doing. A lot of people wouldn't get hired, right? But people don't think to ask. It's like, oh, it's my aunt. They don't know that their aunt has closed 1 home in the last 12 months. And again, if they're fine hiring their aunt who's closed 1 home, that's fine. Totally good. But they don't know. They have no idea. It's crazy. But if I know that the listing agent is a little urgent, they haven't sold anything, they probably want this off their plate, whether it's because they have another job and this is a side gig, they don't want to spend more time and effort here than they have to. They want to be done and get on with it. Or they need that paycheck because this is their full-time job and they haven't had any closings. Right? Either of those are in my favor because now I can get the listing agent, the buyer's agent, whatever, to tell me things that they shouldn't tell me. Okay? So for example, I can tell you, and even in our own office, there are agents that with like unprompted, within seconds of getting on the phone with them, will tell me that their sellers are getting divorced. Why should they not tell me that? As a listing agent yourself, why should you not disclose that? What's the downside? Do you have ideas? Yeah. Okay, how? Why? Okay, how can they use it? What does it tell the buyer if they know the seller is getting divorced? Desperate in what way? So usually if it's a divorce and it's listed, that means they have to sell it. This isn't one of the homes out there where they're like, if we can get this out of our home, then we'll move, right? There's a lot of those. This isn't one of those. They have to sell it. Okay, so they have to sell it. So you're right, like desperate, not necessarily in the terms of like, I need this to happen right now. It's that I have to have it happen, right? It's got to sell. Okay, what else? Yep, there's an urgency to some degree. What else?
When they're ready to get divorced, they can't stand each other. So the living together is miserable.
So whether they're living in the same house or not, this is likely a miserable experience for the agent too. I can tell you, having listed homes for couples getting divorced a bunch of times, it freaking sucks. It's not fun. You want it over, but you shouldn't want it over to the point of sacrificing your client's leverage, right? Okay. I will tell you the single biggest thing as a buyer, when I find a seller is getting divorced, the single biggest thing it tells me is that we have price negotiation room, because let's say you're selling your house, you and a wife are selling your house, okay? And I come in and ask for a $30,000 price reduction, okay? How much am I asking for? 30,000 bucks. Now, let's say you're getting divorced. Am I asking for 30,000 bucks? I'm asking for 15 from you and 15 from her. It's way more palatable when it's being split up. Okay, same thing for, I have a home that I've got under contract right now. It's 8 siblings selling mom's home. I'm not telling anybody that, because a $20,000 price reduction between 8 people is not a lot. It's really easy for like my clients, 20,000 bucks. Okay, sweet. So we're each getting like 2.25, like 22.50 each, I think is what it would be. Something like that. That's not that much, right? That's way easier to stomach. But if I share that, now the buyer agent has some, oh, cool, we can use this, right? I don't want to give them that, okay? But the listing agent and the buyer agent, they can tell you, oh, they've already moved out of state. The house is vacant. They bought it 4 years ago. I know it wasn't a cash purchase, which means every first of the month, they're making a payment for a house they don't live in. They're probably double dipping. They're paying for mortgage there or rent there, and they're paying for this. They want to go. Okay, so again, you shouldn't share those things. They've got a new job. He starts May 1st in another state. They have to move. Awesome. I know they've got to go by May 1st. Okay, so again, all of these things are things that we can find out. And the way you find out isn't by saying, hey, tell me all the crappy things that are going on for your seller, right? I say, hey, my clients like the house. We're kind of deciding what we want to do. They liked a few, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out the situation for all these. Tell me, like, what's important to your seller? That's where I'm going to start. What's important to your seller? I know, obviously, price and stuff. So beyond that, what's important to your seller? What's their situation? Like, oh, this guy's trying to help me out. Well, they'd like to close by this point because they're moving out of state. Ding, 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 ding. All right, you gave me a deadline for them that is going to feel so heavy the closer they get to it, right? Oh, all the time. All the time. They shouldn't. No, they're just, so when I got my license, there's a guy, he's one of the operating principal partners up at Berkshire Hathaway. His name's Will Cooper. He's awesome. Such a good dude. Berkshire Hathaway is crazy expensive, so I didn't go there. But Will Cooper is awesome. He's been in real estate forever. And he and I were talking once, just the two of us, as I was still trying to decide where I was going to go for a brokerage. And he goes, honestly, Cody, this industry has a cold. Realtors we're sick. We're all self-interested. They're doing what is best for them. Clients' needs come second. And he's right. That's why this works. Either the agent is so busy, they just want this all done. Transactions, get it done, get it off my plate. Or they're not very busy and they need it to close so they can get paid. So now, like, the result is the same. They wanted to get done. There's a really healthy in-between of agents who are doing a good amount of volume to where they're okay if this takes a little while. They'll still advise their client on, what's best for the client. But they're busy enough that they know what's going on in the market. They know what they can make happen, right? And that's where you want to land. Honestly, that's where you want to land. You want to be busy enough that you don't put yourself in the position of potentially risking your client's best interest, but you want to be busy enough that you're experienced. You know what you're doing. Okay, so like I said, what you're trying to find, you can find a lot of leverage and information either from the listing agent or about the listing agent, and that can tell you what's going on. Okay. I don't know why I threw that in there. Okay. Let's talk about why that agent is your best weapon. Okay. Most people, not agents, people, including agents, view confrontation or view negotiation as a confrontation. How many of you gone out of the country and you go to those big markets where they're all like bartering like crazy and it makes you cringe and you're uncomfortable? Yeah? Everybody. Americans, we're not good at it. My wife freaking loves it. She will negotiate and barter with someone for like 20 minutes for something she doesn't even freaking want. It's just fun for her. Okay? So maybe that's part of why this just isn't confrontational to me. It doesn't need to be, right? But most people view it as negotiation as confrontational, so they won't do it. Right? It makes them uncomfortable. Okay? Let's see. Here's a big part of it though. A large percentage of our realtors right now, they grew up without building great communication skills. Do you know how I know? An agent will show my listing, not respond to my calls and texts. I'll get an emailed offer in my inbox and never receive any communication from the buyer agent. Never. I call them, they don't answer. I text them, they don't respond. All I've got is an offer in my inbox. And this can hurt them too. Hopefully you don't ever do this. This can hurt you too. I had a home we had multiple offers, sent out to all the people that made an offer, hey, we've gotten multiple offers. We'll be responding on this day, right? So I sent out a call for highest and best, got those, negotiated a little bit, went under contract. I get a call from an agent that says, hey, Cody, I saw that you went under contract, congratulations. Can you share with me what we missed on? And I'm like, I don't even have an offer from you. And she goes, yeah, I sent it on this day. It was in my spam. Had she texted me and said, hey, Cody, just sent over an offer. Can you confirm you've received it? I would have searched. But it went to my spam. Right? Because she was awkward as hell. I found out later that she's friends with my sister. And that was her very first transaction. Again, she was learning. It's okay. But she told me, she's like, we've made 4 other offers. Now I have no idea if those listing agents even got them. Potentially your clients missed out on 5 homes that they liked because the agent didn't communicate. Okay, please don't let that be you. Right? You should be communicating before you ever make an offer. Okay, and then as a listing agent, you should be following up with and communicating with every agent that shows your listing. Try at least. A lot of them won't reply, but try. Okay, here's a big problem. If their client is cool with doing what's being asked of them, they just let them do it. So for example, if a home, I mentioned this to you, right? Home is listed at 500. You run comps, or maybe you don't. I don't know. But hopefully you do. You run comps and says that you should probably be at 480. And you say to your client, hey, where do you want to offer? By the way, I never asked that. But where do you want to offer? Let's do like 495. Why? Don't just let them make that offer because it makes your job easier. Obviously, it's more likely to be accepted, right? So your life is easier. But again, you're signing a buyer-broker agreement, a listing agreement saying that you will put your client's interest first. And then we're just doing what makes our job easiest. Please don't. It's not hard to push back and advise your client. Like I said, I don't ever ask my clients what they want to offer, ever. I say, hey, here's the situation. Here's the comps I see. I've talked to the listing agent. Here's the interest they're getting or not getting. They don't have any other offers. There's this home down the street. Yes, it hasn't sold, but it's already $20,000 below this one. Yes, we like this one more, but that will be a comp for this. So let's come in here. My suggestion is we come in here. How do you feel about that? I would say less than 10% of the time does my client want to be more aggressive than I want to be. Very rarely. Now, again, every scenario is different. If it's a new listing, they've got a bunch of interest, we don't want to run the risk of not getting it. So there's things, have you heard of an escalation clause? Do you know what that is? Anybody have any ideas? So it basically just says, and there's an official escalation clause addendum. I don't like to use it because puts constraints on me that I don't like in the offer. But an escalation clause is basically, I will pay more than any other offer you receive up to this amount. Okay? I don't like having that cap on it up to this amount because I don't know till I see it whether my client's willing to do it, but I don't want to lose, right? Do you want to make an offer at 465 and lose to an offer at 467 just because you didn't know that you only had to bump up $3,000 to win? $3,000 on their monthly payment is like $15, something like that, maybe a little more, but it's not a lot. And you, at the very least, want your client to know that they have the option, right? Like, I want them to know, like, do you want to bump up or do you not want to? I want to find out. So I love to use escalation clauses because they help me find out what we have to do to win, and then they can choose if they want to do it to win, right? But this is the way that most agents approach it. We got this offer. What do you want to do? We're listed at, so for example, I'm listed at 515 in Eagle Mountain. We got an offer yesterday at 500 and asking 14,000 in concessions. Most agents would send that to the client and say, hey, here's the offer. Here's what it nets you. What do you want to do?
How do you verify?
It's a great question. So I'll show, I can't really show it to you, I guess. So hold on just a second. I'll read you how I write my escalation clauses. And again, like I said, I write them. Let's see. Nope, not that one. Sorry, give me just a moment. I got to find one that I did. Haven't done a lot lately, but I can't find it, but I can tell you what's in it. Basically, it says if the seller receives a higher net offer, again, net. I'm not just going to beat their purchase price if they're asking for like $30,000 in concessions, right? I'm talking net. So if they receive an offer that nets them more, so if the seller receives a higher net offer, buyer will pay whatever amount you decide with your client, $1,200 more. I don't land on round numbers just in case they get another escalation clause. I don't want to do like right on 1,000. I want mine to be a little bit off, something like that. So a buyer will pay $1,200 more than the competing net offer. And then I have a line in there that says, in order to enact this escalation clause, seller's agent must provide buyer's agent with copy of the competing offer by this time on this date, or else the purchase price will be the one in the Rep C. Okay, so we don't have this just open-ended. What if we get under contract and they get a higher offer after that? We're not beating that offer. We're already under contract. Okay, so we're trying to make sure that we limit this. So we'll pay more, this much more than any other net offer you get. But to use that, you have to send me a copy of that offer with a counter offer stating the new price by this time on this day. If you don't and you just accept this, then we're under contract at the price I already stated. Does this make sense? I know it's kind of a lot. Does that make sense? And again, this is when you think there might be or there are competing offers, and you just want to find out what it needs to be. Because the seller has to draft a counteroffer for putting the new price, right? Send that back to you with a copy of the offer that they got so you can see it. And again, I've gotten those where they include the Rep C, but on the Rep C, there's marked that there's addendum 1 and 2. I need addendum 1 and 2. What do those say? Because if I'm beating this offer, I need to know what's in it. We'll beat it, but I need to know what's in it. And if it goes too high and your client doesn't want to do it, then you just don't accept the counteroffer. You're fine. You were never at risk. This is a really risk-free way to just find out what the seller has in their hand cards-wise, right? Well, I write that in there that, hey, here's our escalation clause. If you want to use it, you have to send me the offer that you got that we're beating, and you have to send me a counteroffer putting the new price. If you don't do that and you accept this, then we're under contract at the price we put in the Rep C. And you'll be surprised how often agents dangle that other offer in front of you when it's not even a good one. Well, they're higher on price. Okay, what are their concessions? Well, there's some concessions. Yeah, I figured. Okay. Oh, and this is the other nice part is most agents, not listing agents only, but most agents won't respond like emotionally. They won't be offended. There are some that are. And usually if that's the case, it's because this is an ego thing. They don't want to lose, question, like quote unquote, right? Sometimes it's their seller, but sometimes it's the agent. They don't want to lose. So let them feel like they're winning. I don't care. You can feel like you won as long as my client is happy at the end. Okay. So here's another place you can find leverage in the home. What do you think I mean by that? How can you find leverage in a transaction in the home? If you're a buyer, where can you find information in the house that tells you info that's helpful? What's that? Okay, so if it's staged, it's empty, but it's staged. What are some things that are maybe going on? Clearly, no one's living in it. Okay. Do any of you guys know how staging works cost-wise? So, I mean, depending on the size of the house, it can be expensive, but usually that only gets them a 30-day stage. And then every week beyond that, they make they pay 10% usually of what that upfront staging cost was to keep it. So 30 days, let's say $3,000, and it's not cheap. Let's say $3,000. That means another week is another 300, another week's another 300, another week's another 300. Okay, so they're spending money every day that staging is there beyond that 30 days. Okay, they don't want to keep spending that money, and you don't know. Again, you don't know if the listing agent's paying for it. They might be. I have, or you don't know if the buyer is or the seller is paying for it themselves. That can tell you some things, right? That's costing them money to have this here. They probably are ready to negotiate. Okay, that's part of it. You mentioned pictures. Or did you mention pictures? If I see pictures of a family in the master closet only has wife's stuff in it, and look for that stuff, you'll see it. Right? This is probably a divorce. It sucks, but it probably is. Okay. Again, if in the home, so I'm going to go through and hopefully you're doing this, when I go through, I try to look at, it's not always accessible without taking panels off, but I try to look at the age of the furnace. I try to look at the age of the AC. I do look at the age of the water heater because it's right there. Okay, I'm looking at how old those things are because can be significant replacement costs, right? So let's say they're all old, or let's say the carpet, well, I'll address that in a second. But let's say those things are all old and they probably need to be replaced. Okay, and you should have in your head, you should learn what's the age where I need to plan on this going soon. Okay, so a water heater, I would say anything beyond 10 years, you need to plan on that being replaced sometime soon, right? A home warranty will cover it for the first year if you can negotiate that. Hopefully you have a good home warranty company that doesn't try to screw your clients. There are some. But if it's beyond 10 years old, I need to, in my offer, I tell my clients, hey, we're not going to bring this up because it's going to come up in the inspection. I know it's going to come up. We're going to negotiate for it now. Our offer needs to compensate for that. Assume you are replacing it. What does the offer need to be to replace this? And then after the inspection, we're going to negotiate for it again. Because of the seller, that's the first time we've brought it up. But to us, it's the second time we've addressed it. Does this make sense? So if I think the furnace and the water heater need to be replaced, I'm going to text my HVAC guy, my plumber, hey, give me a ballpark. They'll give me a ballpark. Okay, I'm at $7,000. And that's high. But say $7,000 to replace those. That means in my offer, I need to adjust my offer to compensate for that $7,000 I may have to spend. I don't say anything to the seller about that. That's what we're doing. And that's why our offer is what it is. But I'm going to do that. And then when the inspection comes back, now I negotiate again. For the same thing, I already negotiated for it. But to the seller, it's the first time it's coming up.
Mentioned the water heater and your wider times.
So no, I don't mention it at all. I just tack it on to the concessions I'm asking for. Because the closing costs addendum, let me open this up. This will be helpful for you to see too. The closing cost addendum. No, you would have to do that on an addendum. So the addendum to the real estate purchase contract, is that this? I can't see very well. Okay. Right here, there's a closing cost addendum clause. Throw that over here, hit load clause, and then let's read through this. Seller agrees to contribute at settlement the amount of blank to be applied at buyer's discretion toward any and all of the following: permanent reduction or temporary reduction in the loan interest rate, so buy down. Okay. Financing costs, they're their closing costs, right? Origination fee, appraisal, all that kind of crap. Closing costs and or prepaid escrows. But then here's the best part. Any unused portion of the seller's contribution may, at buyer's option, be used to reduce the purchase price. So if you ask for 20 grand, your actual closing costs are only 12. You can use the remaining 8 off the price, so you don't waste it. There are other ways you can do this, and you have to find the right title company and the right lender that will allow it. But normally, so let's say you're doing a conventional loan purchase, and you're doing 20% down, 10% down, I think is where the cap is, 10% down. The lender will generally only allow you to receive up to 3% of the purchase price in concessions. Okay, so if it's a $500,000 house, you're capped at $15,000 in concessions. There's ways around it if you have the right lender and the right title company. So I've written in there that without addressing specifics, because I don't want there to be specifics, because I don't want the lender to freak out, I'll say at closing, seller will pay $10,000 to the title company that we're using for repairs to be completed on the property. We don't address what those repairs are. We don't say if they're already done or they're not done. We're saying it's paying for repairs. And then I put in there that the title company will pay that out directly to contractors. Okay, so to the lender, oh, the seller isn't giving this money to the buyer. It's being paid to contractors for repairs. They assume it's already been done. It hasn't been done. If they knew it wasn't done, they wouldn't allow it. We're not saying it's not done. We're not saying it's done. We're letting it be vague and getting it to work. So I had one that we closed in Eagle Mountain. The whole basement was unfinished. And we got the seller to stick $97,000 at title when we closed to pay for the basement finish. So my client didn't have to pay for it. And again, that was one where I didn't go through this actually. Where's my mouse? There it is. Neighbors. Neighbors can be the greatest freaking tool because they don't have a fiduciary responsibility to the seller. If I see a neighbor outside of a house, I'm talking to them. If my clients like it, I'm going and talking to the neighbor because they'll tell you what's really going on. They don't care. So that one that we made happen, I found out that the listing agent said they'd been listed like 3 days. So it'd been listed for 3 days. They were listed at 1.4. On day 5, we got under contract at 1.3, $100,000 off their list price with $20,000 in concessions. And then also got another $97,000 to finish the basement. Okay, again, it was neighbors. So I talked to a neighbor across the street as we were walking out, found out that the family was moving to Idaho. He didn't really know why, but it was kind of abrupt. As I was talking to him, I found out that one of his buddies that lived a few streets down is a buddy of mine that I didn't realize lived right there. So I called him. He's like, oh, I know what's going on. I'll tell you all of it. They've got lawsuits. They've got anyway, he was a builder. He's got all this business stuff that's imploding. Right? That sucks. I feel bad. But I only work for one person here. So we're going to do what we can to negotiate, right? So if you see neighbors out, I'll talk to neighbors. Okay, comps can help you. Like I said, it doesn't matter what their list price is. List price is the marketing price. Doesn't mean it's the price that you have to pay or the price they'll sell it for, right? But it's important when you look at comps that you look at, did they have to give any concessions? Was there a buyer agent involved? Right? Now, if I'm a buyer agent and I see a home that sold way less and there was no buyer agent on it, it was off market, so they obviously didn't pay a buyer agent commission. I'm not sharing that with the listing agent when I use this comp to try to get the price down. I'm just telling him it sold for less. Right? But as a listing agent, you should look at that. Yes, I know that sold for less. I know there was no agent involved on the buy side. So they saved 2 to 3% there. So bump that price up by 2 to 3%. And now it's more accurate. Right? Like, okay, I know the price. If I'm a buyer, okay, I know this home down the road sold at 500, which is right where you're listed, but they had to give $23,000 in concessions, which means they sold at 477, not at 500. Right? So this is where you need to use the comps to help you. Okay. There are also things that you can do to create leverage, right? Offer terms, find out what they want, and by giving it to them, now you're getting some leverage to get what you want, especially if it's something you don't really care about, right? Timeline. Some sellers, they just want to freaking go fast. They don't know that maybe your buyer also wants to go fast. So say, ooh, let me find out with my client. Let me find out with the lender, how fast they can go, all this stuff. Okay, like I said, give something. You got to give something to get something. Sometimes you create this like artificial stress for the listing agent because then they freak out a little bit and they'll be more willing to bend to make something happen. Okay, and then this is my favorite, is I love calling a listing agent and saying, hey, man, we got a problem. Because they just like internal, just like meltdown. It's the greatest. Because I present them with the problem. I think that we've got a solution. I'm trying to figure out what we can do. And then I get off the phone. I don't tell them what the solution is. I make them think this may all fall apart. Right? Let them freak out, let their client freak out. And then when I come back with a potential solution, now I'm helping them. I'm saving the transaction when really I'm just getting them to do what we wanted them to do. Again, people are like, oh, isn't this fake? Yeah, sure. Somebody hired me to do this for them to save them money. Great, let's go. Yeah, it works for my client. And then this is a phrase I use all the time, like, hey, if we can do this, do you think your client will ... Hey, I don't think that timeline is going to work. If we can make it work, do you think we could do this on the price? You want us to close before the end of February. I don't know if we can do that. If we can, would you be able to meet us halfway on the price? Okay, I'm not saying we will, right? I'm putting it out there as a potential. Oh, that's sold. Okay. Okay, do you guys have any questions about any of this stuff? I know I just threw a lot at you.
How do you go about working your sphere? What do you do?
It's a great question. So I will tell you that when they talk about like lead gen, I don't do lead gen. Which I know that like sounds weird, I guess. What I would tell you, like first and foremost, is find what works for you. Right? What works for you isn't what would work for me. What works for me isn't what would work for you. That's okay. There's a million ways to be successful in real estate. Find the one that works best for you. When I started, and what works best for you may not be what you like doing. But when you're starting and trying to find clients, I would suggest you try everything, because you don't yet know what will be the most effective for you. What would be the best return on your time and money investment, right? So When I started, I already had lots of sales experience, but I was in my mid-30s. My friends were already in their second homes. And a lot of people that are getting their license have like these transactions waiting for them in the wings, right? Once you get your license, help us. Once you get your license, list our home, right? I didn't have any of that. So I got my license in May of 2019. In July of that year, I hadn't closed anything. Was spinning my wheels trying to find some stuff to do. Met a guy named Kevin Moss, who he had these leads he'd been paying for a long time, but didn't have time to get to him because he was productive and successful with his SOI, right? So he had these leads he was paying for. He didn't want to get rid of them because with the lead source he was using, it was by zip code. And if he gave up the zip code, he may never be able to get it back because they have a certain amount of shares they sell. So I had met him, hit it off, very similar personality to me. So I was like, hey, Kev, give me your leads. Just give me your leads. I'll pay you 50-50 split. All I need is like, you don't need to babysit me. I've got the ability to close them. I'll need some of your like negotiation and like contract strategy. That's all I need. So July, I can't remember what the date was, very end of July, end of August. End of August is when we officially partnered and I got my first lead. 5 weeks later, I had 3 closings on the same day. And then it was just sort of like off to the races. Over that 3 month, like October, November, December, I think I closed 7. 2020, I closed 29. 2021, 53, right? We started to build the team out. But also in that time frame, like my business wasn't all leads. Like I found that I had done door knocking forever ago, door-to-door sales. I found that like I could go knock doors for an hour and find a client. Whether it was a home to sell or someone, buying. So I did that quite a bit because my time, that was the best return on my time investment and there was no cost. So I did that early, but I don't like it. Nobody likes it. So if you can find a way to replace that at some point, then do. Some people are great at open houses. Last year, I closed 3 transactions that I met them at my open houses. That's not why I do open houses though. And I think that's part of why I find business at my open houses. Have any of you guys been to an open house hosted by another agent? Okay. 9 times out of 10, the agent that is hosting it is not the listing agent, right? And that's okay. But it's very clear in the way that that agent that's hosting the open house interacts with everybody. They're making no effort to sell that house. None. They seem thirsty and all they want is like, give me business, give me business, give me business. That's the reason they're there, is to find business, right? The reason my open houses, I think, result in both selling the house and finding clients and helping them on other transactions. The reason I think that works is because I'm there to sell the house. When they have questions about the home, I can provide them. When they ask about the seller's situation, I can provide those answers, right? I can tell them cool things about the house because I care about them knowing about the cool things about the house. Also, there's way less pressure for them because I don't care if, like, I'm selling this house. If you don't have an agent and want to talk, yeah, that's great. I'm happy. Let's talk. But I'm here to sell this house, right? And some agents do that really well and find a lot of business from open houses. Some do mailers or that kind of thing. I don't think mailers are super productive personally. But the problem is, as a new agent trying to find business, a lot of agents allow themselves to convince they're being productive by doing things that are important to the business that don't actually generate any business. Like, oh, I have to build my website. You don't need a freaking website. You don't have to have a website to have a client. But people convince themselves, oh, well, I can't start calling anybody until my SOI is at 300 people. Dude, call the 40 that you have. And by the way, what does SOI mean? Sphere of influence. Does that mean that every person you know goes in your SOI? No, because you don't have influence over everybody you know. There are people that I'm so tight with, and they've got a realtor, and they have forever, and they're tight. Great. We'll still be cool. I'll still interact with them, but they're not in my SOI. So I would break here's the way I would break your SOI up. So I have three tiers in my SOI. Let me pull this back up. Where did I put it? Here it is. Okay. So I have 3 groups in my SOI. I've got advocators. Okay. Those are the people that will refer me to somebody give that person my name and info when that person asks for it. Say, hey, do you know a good realtor? Then they would give my name, okay? That's an advocator. They like me, they will share my info, but only when asked directly for it, okay? There's promoters, people who like volunteer your info when they find out someone else has a need, right? Like, oh yeah, we're thinking about moving. Oh, really? You should call Cody. Okay, so that's different, right? That's different than just, they weren't asked for it, they'll volunteer it. But then there's creators. Those are people that love you and trust you. They are looking for clients for you. Okay, last year I closed 4 transactions that were referred from the same person. That's my electrician. And he's the greatest electrician. I refer him to anybody that needs anything. But like, this isn't like a quid pro quo. He's a great electrician. For the price you pay for him, you get the best work that can be done in that price range. There are people who are cheaper, but they're worse. There are people who are his quality, but they're more expensive. I think he's the best, combination. But when he goes to people's homes, he is constantly looking for clients for me. He asks, and I don't give him anything in return. He asks people like, oh, what are we doing this all for? Are you getting ready for a move? He like is digging. He's trying to find, okay, that's a creator. So I've got several of those, but that's how I break up my SOI. I've got advocators, promoters, and creators. Where do I spend the most of my, I don't call it lead gen time, I call it relationship time. I spend the most of my relationship time on the creators. Okay, I have a Topgolf pass, a corporate pass, and I'm calling and offering it to people all day, every day. When I call them, I don't ask for anything. When I call them, I don't bring up real estate. If they want to talk real estate, great, I'll talk about it with you if you want, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want people to start thinking that, oh, Cody's calling, he wants something. Oh, Cody's calling, he just wants to talk about real estate. So I have a buddy who was just on Beast Games and just won 1.8 million bucks. And I called him and he answered. No, sorry. He didn't answer. He called me back like 10 minutes later. His phone's been blowing up, of course, since the episode aired that showed that he won all this money. He's like, Cody, do you know, you're like only the 3rd person that I've called back. Why? Because those other people he's only heard from them now that he won this thing. Right? Whereas I call him every few months, just check in. How's he doing? Most time we don't talk real estate. I'm in my car. When I'm in my car, I'm on the phone. I'm touching base with people, saying hi, catching up, asking how they're doing. And guess what? They're not dicks. So they'll ask how things are going for me. If they don't, then that's fine. But they do. And when they ask how things are going for me, I don't dwell on it. I'm not like, sweet, now's my chance. I'm like, oh, it's good. I've been really busy, so I'm lucky. And then I leave it. If they ask a follow-up question, I'll answer that. But again, I'm not going to like go off on a tangent. But if they ask another question and like keep it going, okay, now I'll go full-blown real estate conversation because you've asked multiple times. Okay? But I'm not calling to talk real estate. I'm calling to strengthen and build a relationship with somebody that I already like. Right? And to me, my life is better as a result because, like I said, I don't call them lead gen. I don't call it lead gen. I don't call those lead calls. I call them relationship calls. I never ask for referrals, like ever. And again, this doesn't work for most people. I know that. I know that it doesn't. And it's easy to get to this point when you're busy. I understand that too. Right? Not everybody has the freedom, I guess, to be able to just make calls and it be okay if it doesn't lead to anything. But I have a client that we've got their home listed. I didn't do anything for them real estate wise for like 3 years of us talking every couple months. That's fine. We never talked real estate. She never asked. And then finally, she just calls me, hey, Cody, we think we want to move. Sweet. Okay. I guess the big thing is on that front, just think about how you respond when someone calls you. Do you have that person that calls you and you're like, I know why they're calling? Right? I have a buddy that didn't respond to me for we were good friends. And he didn't respond to me basically for years. I would text or call him every 5-6 months. Didn't respond to me. And then he does text me out of the blue, and it's in a thread with like 13 other people sharing that he's opening his own like skincare office. Don't be that, right? At least be smart enough to send an individual text. But do you guys have any other questions or anything? It's not for most people. Start negotiating on little things every day. So I'm being 100% serious. I ask for discounts everywhere I go. And like lighthearted, joking, you would be surprised how many of these employees will do it. They don't care. You'd be surprised. Like I get discounts at frickin' Burger King because I just ask for it and I call them by name. And I'm like the first person in 4 days who's treated them like a human being. Start doing it like on a consistent, small basis, right? So I have a pair of boots, and this is one of my favorite stories. I have my wife gets embarrassed sometimes, but she loves haggling too. So normally she's cool with it. So I'm at Express in the Fashion Place Mall in Murray, and I'm returning something. I was returning something from my wife right down the hall, and they have like an Express Men or whatever it is there, right? And like they have some stuff that fits me well. I have a really weird body shape. I have a long torso, short legs. My wife is 8 inches shorter than me, and her legs are the same length. That's not normal. So I went into Express, and they had this one pair of suede, like I don't know, like they're lace up. Anyway, they're cool, like suede tan boots. There's one pair. And they're cool. So I grab them. There's no price on them. Take them to the girl I used to do retail, right? Verizon retail. So I take them to the girl at the counter. I'm like, hey, can you tell me how much these are? She starts digging, and it's taking her a minute. I look at her, I'm like, they're not in your inventory, are they? She goes, no, they are. I'm like, they're not, are they? Are they an internet return? She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you $20. And she starts laughing. I'm like, I'll give you $30. And she goes, oh, you're serious? I'm like, yeah, you don't know how much they are. I don't know how much they are. I'll give you $30. They're not in your inventory. I will pay you $30. I'll give you cash. What's your Venmo? And she starts laughing. She goes, grab me those shoes. So I grab another pair of shoes. They ring up at like $18. And so she rings me out for a pair of those. These boots are like $95 on Express's website. Right? But like, if you like treat people like people, and again, you know that voice. When you go to like, how many of you been to the bank recently? You know the voice that the teller uses when they talk to you? Hi, how are you doing today? So, do you have any big plans for the weekend? Oh gosh, kill me. It sounds like someone's holding a gun to their head, making them talk to you. They don't want to do it, right? Everywhere, it's everywhere. They don't want to talk to you. They have to, right? And they use that voice that's like, this is my stranger voice. This is my being nice to a stranger voice. Okay, but like picture the scenario if I work at Chick-fil-A and I don't know you, but you're my buddy's brother. Like I'm tight with your brother and he tells me his brother's coming in. Am I going to talk to him in the same tone of voice in the same way that I talk to the random person that walks to the counter? No, I'm not. Why? I don't know him. But it's different, right? It's different. The way we interact with people in that scenario is different. What if you just interacted with freaking everybody like that? That's the reason the internet leads worked so well for me. In 3 seconds on the phone, I've got someone laughing or smiling. And for me, I'm hearing cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Because walls are coming down, right? Whether it's a stranger when you're knocking doors, whether it's a phone call, whether it's someone you know casually. Like if you can interact with them like that, like you'll get them on your side real quick. And then they'll keep answering your calls when you call. They'll call you back. They'll text you unprompted. Yeah, you bet. But like this is how this stuff works. When people say real estate's a relationship business, it is. The people who do the best usually are relationship people. Now, there's some people that aren't like that, and that's okay. Some people are very transactional. On to the next. They don't maintain relationships. Totally fine. That's the way they run their business. They don't want to run it another way. I don't want to do that. I like hanging out at Topgolf 3 times a week with someone that I like whether it brings me business or not. It does bring me business, but even if it didn't, the relationship is worth the time. So that, I mean, that's how I've gotten it to work for me. And the negotiation side, hey, he's trusting me with his money. He's trusting me to get him the best scenario possible. I'm gonna do that. And I think if you like have that mindset of I'm gonna get him everything I can get him, it totally changes how you interact with an agent on the other side. I'm one of those I don't do any self-help stuff. The books I read are fiction. The podcasts I listen to are true crime or sports. Yeah, years of sales. I guess you weren't here. So I did 6 years of door to door. I was a regional manager for the last 4 of those. And then I had 8 years as a regional sales director and district manager at different points for wireless retail, but it's sales reps that I managed.
What sales training did you do when you were in sales?
Talking to people. Yeah. Yeah. That's the honestly, like people like they allow themselves to do the least uncomfortable stuff. Talking to strangers and putting yourself out there is uncomfortable. So what do people do? They allow themselves to believe that it's, oh, well, I got to do my website. I got to finish my SOI, and I need to have all of their addresses and emails and everything to do that. I can't start calling people until that's done. Oh, and then I've got to get my headshots, and I've got to have business cards, and I've got to, I've got to identify my lender and my title company. They allow them to do all the things that aren't actually producing business, because the things that lead to business are the things that are uncomfortable. And negotiation is one of those things too. It's uncomfortable, so people allow themselves to believe that they are representing their client well, even though they're not.